if it broke, that'd be the best day of my life.
Alright, Doug, we're gonna be going live in 1 second, okay?
Did you get my email now?
Yes, about the policy needing to be switched out.
But you didn't share it to everyone else. I just sent it to you and Darlene, so.
I have not shared it with anybody else.
I'll send it out to everyone else then, because that's the wrong policy.
All right, good evening, everyone.
I'm so sorry she put the wrong
There's
one
a
in.
couple things like that, though. One of the policies has some language, you know.
Like to
wasn't
call
edited
the
right.
June 14th meeting of the Winchester Board of Education meeting to order at 7:01. And if you would all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we do the roll, please, starting?
Renee Waltren.
Nora McCarskey.
Doug Fenner.
Melanie Brady Shanley.
Tori Lavetri.
Sandra Strubar. Cheryl McLean.
Okay, thank you. Under agenda review, do we have any additions or anything we'd like to change on our agenda this evening? No? We're gonna modify that a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. I do have a couple of comments tonight. The first one is that tonight we're going to be hearing from our administrative team. I understand they have some good news for us. And if history is any kind of a indication of what we're going to hear, we're also going to hear strategies for how you're addressing the concerns you have about curriculum and instruction that aren't quite where you want to be. And I think that's great. But I want to tell you that last Thursday evening at the Culture and Climate Dinner, I witnessed something else that I think is equally important to how well we educate our kids. I saw a team of people that are clearly like a family. It's a very nurturing environment. I saw evidence through the videos that kids love their teachers, that the teachers love their kids. And Seamus and I talked about this briefly, and we agree, without the social, nurturing environment that you have in a school that you folks have provided, you can't begin to do the other tasks set before you. That's the foundation for learning. And so I think that was really strong evidence of the culture and the climate that we have in this school, and I'm really impressed. So thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you.
Second piece of news is a little sad. We received a letter of resignation from Dr. Dutton yesterday. He is resigning for health reasons, so we have a vacancy on this board, and we will also have a vacancy on the TGS board. What I would like to propose, and the board certainly has a voice in this, if you recall in the past, those of you who were here when we had to replace somebody, we announced that there was a vacancy. We set up a committee. We interviewed the people who expressed an interest, and then we chose someone from that pool. We can do that, and perhaps we should, but I would also like to consider the possibility that we reach out to Tara Sunday, who is a past board member who ran in the last election and did not get elected. She was the only one who didn't get elected. And there's at least a few of us on this board who know her very well and would welcome her back. If that's acceptable to the board, I would be happy to do that. If you want to go through the whole process, that's fine too. I know you don't all know Tara the way the rest of us do, so maybe you would like to explore the possibilities.
Is that permissible under our?
Yes, it is. The statute, Cheryl, reads that the board has 30 days to fill the vacancy. And if they don't, the selectmen would do that. It doesn't stipulate any process or procedure.
Well, I'd make a motion to approach Tara Sunday. She has the experience, she has the interest, and she was a valuable member of this board. So, see if she's interested.
Second.
Okay. Is there any contrary feelings? Anybody? No?
I would
I
concur.
think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other good part about that is if we didn't do that, if we go the other way, we have to have a special meeting within 30 days, which I know in June or July is going to be tough to do. So, all right, we'll move forward on that. Thank you very much.
Superintendent's evaluation.
Yes, one final comment.
We have to put that to a vote, right?
Actually, we don't because it's not on the agenda, but if we have a sense of the board, I will move forward on that.
Good, very good.
And at such time that Tara expresses an interest, I'll bring that forward and then the board will vote on it.
And do we still have to have that meeting within 30
Yeah.
days then?
We're able to have a virtual meeting, though, if that's something that the board would
Yes.
like, is
Like
just
a
do a quick
special virtual meeting?
special virtual
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah,
Yes, we
following
can do
proper
that.
protocol.
Also, a few of us met with Melanie about her year-end evaluation. As you know, we use the State of New York Superintendent's Association evaluation template. I'm not quite sure what the right term is, but it goes through the various metrics for evaluating the performance of your superintendent, which include relations with the board, relations with the community, performance in academics. So there's a whole range of things that we discussed. And as usual, Melanie submitted, actually this year was very brief, it was only about 10 pages of her accomplishments over the year. And no surprise, we were all very impressed and very pleased with Melanie's performance over the past year, and we gave her basically top marks in every category. I don't know if anybody else would like to. Sandra, would you have any comment you wanted to add, or Lenora?
I would just like to say that Melanie continues to excel our expectations in leading the district in a direction that I think is very positive, and affirming not just our administration, but the teachers and the students in the district, and moving us in the right direction. And I think it's one warranted of a PhD, truthfully. The studies and things that we all have done definitely is cutting edge and creative, and I think is something that should be showcased nationally to see what we're doing here in the Winchester schools.
I concur.
Sandra, you have anything you'd like to add? Great. So with that behind us, we can move on to presentations, and that would be the end of the year non-standardized assessment results.
Do we want, I don't think there's anyone here for public comment, but just in case.
Yeah, you gotta do that.
We want to just move that beforehand.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anyone for public comment?
Just in case.
If not, we'll move on.
All right. All right, our team could come up. So, we're gonna start with introductions and kind of just a brief, presentation of who is amongst you this evening. Obviously, Melanie Brady Shanley, Superintendent.
Good evening, Roseanne Field, Principal of Bachelor, soon to be Hinsdale School. Good evening, Board, Barbara Silverio, Principal of Pearson School. Hi, I'm Glenna Dulakis, I am the inclusion coach for the district.
Good morning, Board. Seamus Coleman, Director of Student Services for Winchester.
And Cassandra Murphy's running a little bit late right now, but she'll be joining us, and that's our Assistant Director for Student Services. So I'm gonna start you off this evening. We have a presentation tonight that will highlight our local standardized assessments. So these are non-state sharing assessments. These are our local assessments that help us benchmark throughout the school year. These particular assessments that you're going to see tonight are benchmark fall, winter, and spring. So when you look at our data, we always compare spring to spring analysis, because what you should be seeing is cohort improvement on a year-to-year basis and grade level to grade level improvement. So we're gonna show you two different versions of this tonight. You will see some new data charts that have not been presented to you in the past. So we'll walk you through how those go. So I'm gonna turn it over to Seamus to talk about the context.
I said good morning earlier, but good evening. So our first slide that I'm presenting tonight is the context of our 2021-22 assessment results. So it's kind of crazy to think this, but this honestly is our first year since 2020 that we've been 100% back in person with no other restrictions, which is kind of mind-boggling that this has been going on for 2 years. We have a large populations of students that have returned to us. I think it's about 20% of our populations have returned to us in one form or the other, whether it be virtually, homeschooling, parents that were choosing other options during that time, but we have about a 20% increase as well too. It's been a balance, like Doug, you had mentioned earlier, in regards to the social emotional aspect of returning to school full time with your peers, with everybody else around you. You know, Doug, I shared with you some of the social anxiety I had about being in a big group of people. We're putting a lot of our kids back into schools. So finding that balance between that academic expectation and the social emotional piece, which we'll talk a little bit about later, and regarding our DESA data and some of the other important data that we do have. Full focus on implementation of curriculum and improvements of student performance. So we really just dove right back into it. The main goal is to focus on academics, improve our scores, and keep moving forward like we were prior to COVID happening. You know, and kind of taking that next step and kind of getting us back to exactly what you said, Nora, like that model of what is good practice in our buildings on every single day in our growth practice. We have 180 plus students receiving intervention services. So remember, when I talk about that, we talk about tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 1, every single kid in our district gets, right? Whatever that looks like. Tier 2 and 3 are more intensive interventions that our students receive. 180 plus students in our district are receiving tier 2 and tier 3 intervention. That is allowing us to keep special ed referrals down. It's showing the academic growth that we're looking at, and it's also supporting our data results that are driving our instruction moving forward. Professional development this year focused on small group individualized instruction for non-certified staff. So our paraprofessionals, our interventionists, our teaching assistants, all that. It was great because it was teacher-led instruction. So we had our interventionists that were actually providing this instruction to all these staff members, using an approach to get them using more small groups so we can not pulling as many kids out of classes, but we can do small group moving forward. Certified teachers did a deep data dive 2 years ago, or last year I should say. Ed Advance worked with us around doing a deep data dive and using the acronym FIRM, which stands for feedback, investigation, reteaching, regrouping, and re-engaging, moving on, and extensions. So looking at that acronym and when we're looking at data is how we find that feedback, what we investigate, how we regroup, how we move forward. Overall, the staff has worked amazing this year, and our assessment results really kind of show where we're at right now. So I will turn it over to Ms. Dulakis, and she's going to talk to you about the next slide.
I'm speaking to the academic goals and targets for our school year this year. Our goals were that students would increase performance with reading, mathematics, and science, as measured by the NWA reading, NWA mathematics, the DIBELS and the PELI assessments, as well as our IAB assessments that are through the State of Connecticut website. Rachel Manser did a lot of IAB work with the science side of things, and I think that really paid off when the students did take the NJSS assessment this year. Our SBAC scores are in, and we have performed higher in all areas than in the past year. And our scores are still embargoed at this time, but I don't know if
I can
Melanie.
speak a little bit to that in general terms. So I can tell you that in reading and mathematics, typically you can expect about a 2% gain each year. Once you've reached kind of your average performance level, it's about a 2 to 3% gain that would be acceptable on a year-to-year basis. We've doubled that out in mathematics and reading, and we've quadrupled it out in science. So I can't give you specifics, but I can tell you that the data speaks to the fact that there's been significant improvement on SBAC.
And Mr. Cullinan had mentioned that we did some data analysis this year. Our administration has really encouraged us to do this data analysis, and the instructional coaches took that initiative as well, meeting bi-weekly or sometimes weekly with our teachers to look at student data, to look at the assessment scores, to plan for instruction. And I think that that was part of our growth that we'll see here. I think that's it.
One more question.
Oh, okay.
To review the,
So these are assessments by grade level. We do the PELI, which is a reading assessment in pre-K. We do the kindergarten inventory in kindergarten. There are writing on demands for K through 2. Running records are done across all grade levels. Pre-K, not so much in the beginning of the year, but once we see that our students are beginning readers, they start to do running records towards the middle to end of the year. Dolch, trick, and sight words are done in the early grades up until grade 2. The DIBELS reading assessment is K through 2. The NWA reading and math is K through 6. Bridges unit math assessments, K through 6.
IABs in reading, math, and science are 3 through 6. Physical fitness assessments are 4th and 6th grades. The DESA, social emotional, is K through 6. We also do the DECA at pre-K, which assesses similar social emotional needs at a younger age level. The SBAC reading and math assessments are done, the grades 3 through 6, and NGSS science is 5th grade.
So Laura, I know that one of the things that you had spoken about before is just kind of looking across the grade spans at what assessments we're giving at what levels.
Yeah, this is a great chart. I think, you guys, would you agree? I mean, this is like spelled out, what grade, what assessment. I think this is really great. It's very clear.
All right, so I'm gonna sit down to kind of walk you through these next couple slides. You've seen a version of this slide for the past few years, but for our new board members, I wanna walk through what this is. So we're specifically looking at mathematics, we're looking at NWEA. There's two different things that we're looking at on this. We're looking at grade to grade comparison and then following the open cohort of students. So I'll explain what that means. So to walk through this here, we have kindergarten last spring, the kindergartners in 21 were at 74% proficient. This year, our kindergartners were 79. So then if you go to the spring 21 versus 22, you can see that those students increase because they have a green arrow by 5% on the grade to grade. They don't have a cohort yet because they're only in kindergarten. When you go to first grade though, what you do is you look grade to grade, you can see that there was a 4% increase year to year, but a 19% decline on the kindergarten to first grade cohort. There is a reason for this. Specifically, we had about 25% of this grade that was not in attendance last year. They were either homeschooled or they were virtual learners. And when they came back, the majority of this grade level, grade 1, has not been socialized for the past 2 years. These kiddos have not had exposure to other children. They haven't learned how to, grapple with playing with one another, with learning to share those basic fundamental skills that you learn as a preschooler or a kindergartner leading into this. So you will see across our trend data, first grade is the most impacted grade across our district at this point, and we are going to resource it up for next year to get them back on track. So following this, you see that cohort did decline because when we do a cohort, we don't go kid for kid. We go whoever is in the grade to whoever is in the grade. So you're not necessarily measuring the same kids. For instance, we had a kid that joined us on May 1st. That kid is in this data. We didn't cut them out even though we weren't responsible for their instruction.
So Melanie,
we counted them.
The kids that were in front of you in spring of 2021 with that 74%,
those were in-person learners.
in-person
last
learners,
year, yeah.
and then when you see your kids on spring of 2022, it could be like a lot new kids, a lot more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is.
25% were absent, so
Yeah.
you brought in a whole bunch of new kids.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So if we continue to grade 2, you see grade to grade went up 18%, and the cohort improved 19% in math. Looking at grade 3, there was a decline grade to grade. I mean, they are different cohorts. That 3rd grade cohort last year was a very strong performing cohort. However, the 2nd to 3rd grade cohort improved by 14%, so you can see that. Grade 4, you're also seeing a 17% increase on the grade to grade and a 3% on the cohort. Grade 5, you're seeing a little bit of a decline there on the grade to grade. Again, different groups of kids, but a 4% increase on the cohort. And then you see on 6th grade, huge improvement grade to grade at 18% and the cohort increase of 9%. So the bottom line is what you want to see is a lot of green and a little bit of red when it comes to arrows. Specifically if you're really looking at growth of children, you look to that far right column of cohort to make sure that your cohorts are growing on a year-to-year basis. Any questions kind of on the fundamental understanding of this slide before I move into the next one?
Just because I see there's Gilbert folk here. We were talking about as a way to continue to measure kids from 6 to 7 with comparing apples to apples and that type of assessment. But Gilbert doesn't do NWEA for 7th or 8th grade.
No, they have other local assessments
That's
they're
right,
doing.
okay. So that was one of the things we talked about, maybe there's a possibility to go in a direction, to have a conversation about what kind of assessments could be used in 7th and 8th grade, so we can continue to measure student growth over time by cohort as they enter into Gilbert. Okay,
So the next chart is a new chart for you. So I want to kind of explain what this new chart looks like here. So I did kind of a data dive in which I color coded the students' performance by percentiles, and Nora color coding.
that's very,
Just letting
very
you know.
nice.
So the goal would be, see the 41st to 60th, the 61st to 80th, and the 81st to 100th. You want to see as much green on the side of the chart there, because what that tells you is the 41st to the 100th is at grade level or expanded above grade level. When you see the other percentiles, the 40th and below, those are kids that are approaching and are below grade level. So ideally, in a perfect world, what you would see is pretty much all red on the left and all green on the right. And then what I did was, you've all heard of the bell-shaped curve. We don't want a bell-shaped curve in this particular instance. What we want is a linear line that, you want to go straight from the lowest point to the highest point. So you really want the lowest percentage of students in that 21 and under group, and you want your highest performers to be at that 41st to 100th percentile. So what you can see is your bell-shaped curve should shift to the right, so you should always be higher on the side of that orange bar that you see there, and lower on the left-hand side. Does that make sense? So it's just another graphical representation of how the students are performing as a whole.
Yep.
And you can also see by this the percentage of kids that are falling in each of the percentile bands, so that you can see, we do have a large percentage of students that are up in that 60th to 100th percentile.
I got 21.
Now we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to look at reading. And again, this is that same chart where you're going grade to grade and cohort comparison. So for kindergarten, what we saw was a 5% increase on the grade to grade. In grade 1, we saw a decrease on grade to grade of 2% and a decrease of 22% on that grade 1 cohort. So you can see there's consistency across grade 1 and how much that grade has been impacted. When you go into grade 2, you see there's a large increase of 15% grade to grade, 11% on the cohort. We did see a grade to grade decrease, just because, again, it's that same different cohort right there, 18% on the grade to grade, but the cohort growth of 4% in 3rd grade. If you look at 4th grade's grade to grade went up 13%, and the year to year, the cohort went down by 3%.
What would you explain that? How would you explain that?
3% is about 1 to 2 students.
Okay.
So it could be just a change of student, to be honest. You're also going to see in some of the slides coming up who's in these groups, which we haven't shown you before, and what percentage of the grade level is actually receiving intervention services. So you're going to see some information that'll help feed those understandings. So looking at grade 5, you can see we had a decrease on the grade to grade, but an increase on the cohort. And then looking at grade 6, we had a strong improvement of 17% grade to grade and a 10% on the cohort. So a little bit more of a mixed bag in reading on the grade to grade side, but still strong performance on the cohort side of improving things, because 3%, it's not really statistically a strong indicator, being that they're different children.
Hey, Melanie, do you think there's research out there that would suggest that this COVID has really hammered those grade 1 type kids?
100%.
Across the
If you
nation?
talk to any educator, grade 1 right now is
Yeah.
by far the most, I don't know of any research that'll point to it, but
Right.
conversational research certainly points to grade
Grade
1
one.
being completely impacted.
Melanie, do you think the staff turnover has impacted scores in any way? Have you had any significant change in staffing that?
Not this year. That's been not this year. 2nd grade had a little bit of staff turnover, but they performed strongly. And then 1st grade had some churn at the beginning of the school year, but I don't know that honestly had a vast impact I think behaviorally, socially, emotionally, and academically, I think those children have just had really inconsistent experiences at this point. And I think that's largely what's feeding the decline in that grade that we need to work on.
Thank you.
This is the new chart that I just talked to you about, and again, what you're seeing in this chart is that you wanna see the majority of green over here on these 3 quadrant areas right here. You also wanna see that bell-shaped curve shift to the right, which you see that it is, and you wanna see the majority of the red certainly over here in these 2 quartiles right here. So what we're seeing in reading is that we're following that trend. If you look at the average performance rates, this actually probably is pretty close to a perfect curve as possible, because you've got 24% of your kids following in the 60 to 80 percentile. You've got a smaller percentage at the highest percentile. You've got 21 entering into that acceptable grade level band area, and then you have 19 and your littlest number of 17% in the 21 and below. So, I mean, really statistically, if you look, it's really very close to what a perfect curve would look like when you're looking at shifting to the right.
But you got 64% over there to the right altogether. You know, when you
Yes.
put everything over, and in math, it's 70%.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, that's really good.
So I'm gonna now turn it over to Rosie, and before I turn it over to Rosie, this again is a new way of looking at our data. What you're going to see up top here is that we tested 104 kids in kindergarten. 38% of our kids in kindergarten received some type of service, special education, ELL, intervention, some type of leveled service that is above regular general education. And then you'll see a breakdown of who those students are. It's been difficult to be able to gather the information for new to the district, for moved, etc., the way Power School does it. So we have those boxes blank, but you'll be able to see the overall percentage of students receiving service going forward. Rosie?
So I'm gonna take you into a deep dive of the data for kindergarten, first and second grade. So we tested 104 students, that's the number of students that we have at this grade level. As Superintendent Shanley said, we have 38% of students in kindergarten receiving some sort of service or intervention. 14 students in that grade level are special education. We have 8 English language learners in kindergarten. We have 18 students that receive math or reading tier 2 or 3 intervention. And then in regards to the new to the district, kindergarten was easy to figure this number out based on our numbers from Little Owls, our preschool program, and those students are just generally new to our district, so this number was relatively easy for us to find out. So there's 78 students that were new to our district in kindergarten.
That's 78 of 104.
Correct, yes.
High.
On the right-hand side, this is a deep dive into our math in the green and reading in the blue. So overall, in mathematics, we had 79% of kindergartners scoring at or above grade level, so the 41st percentile or higher. The area of strength, when you look deep into the data for mathematics, is geometry. And that is interesting to us because the geometry unit in kindergarten is actually the final unit. The exciting thing is that they have lessons within our number corner, which is kind of like our calendar activities that focus on geometry all throughout the school year. So this is showing that the number corner and incorporating that into our schedule is really paying off for our students. The area of opportunity for kindergarten in mathematics was operations and algebraic thinking. So this in NWA is asking students a range of solving basic addition to numbers, and even if the student is performing well, it's actually increasing as they go. So it's asking more complex problem solving are really paying off for our students. And areas of opportunity for reading were in vocabulary usage and function. So this is giving us information that we need to spend some more time really diving into specifically not only our whole group instruction, but also our small group instruction on really vocabulary, its meaning, and context within text. So none of this really came as a surprise to us. So I will take you deep into first grade this time. So we have a total of 67 students in first grade. In this grade level, we have 49% of students that are receiving a service, 14 special education students, 1 English language learner in this grade level, and 18 students receiving Tier 2 or 3 intervention in reading mathematics. When we dive into mathematics, we see that we have 55% of students scoring the 41st percentile or higher. In this grade level specifically, Bridges focuses a lot on numbers and operations. So just exploring those numbers, addition, subtraction, and even some basic multiplication language towards the end of the year and embedded in Number Corner as well. So we're not surprised that we see number and operations as a strength in this grade level. And for mathematics in first grade, an opportunity is measurement and data. And again, this area is really infused. There are little opportunities within Number Corner, but this is, there's one specific Bridges unit in this grade level that focuses on that, and then most of it is through Number Corner or touched upon briefly. So this is giving us some work to do within that area and kind of incorporating it into other opportunities or times of day with Math Lab.
Rosie, can I ask you a question? For the kindergarten testing, is that being read to them?
So, yes. So in kindergarten through second grade, the assessment is read to them. All of the assessment questions are read to them with the exception of the reading sections that are assessing their reading scores. Everything else is read to them. When we switch up to third grade, it is no longer read to them. That's a good question. So for reading performance, we have 51% of students in first grade scoring at or above grade level. We're happy to see that vocabulary is
walk you through the same type of data for grades 3 through 6. In 3rd grade, the number of students tested was 67, and 60% of those students were receiving some type of intervention services. 13 were special education students, 4 English language learners, and 23 students receiving intervention services. We were fortunate this year to have 1 interventionist for that entire grade level, so we really targeted those students that were performing below grade level expectations. The math performance, 66% of that population scored at the 41st percentile or higher in the spring. The strengths for math were geometry, which was interesting because in the fall that was the area of opportunity. So that tells us that the curriculum is working, that by the end of the year when they cover that content, that becomes a strength for that grade level. Opportunities in math are numbers and operations, and the interesting thing as we dive into this type of data year after year, we tend to see patterns. And we know, I think we're starting to get to a point where we're familiar enough with our Bridges curriculum in math, and we can say this is now an area that we need to look at and maybe revise and add to. And so numbers and operations, specifically subtraction, is an area of opportunity for us in 3rd grade. The reading performance was lower for this grade level, 53%. The strengths for reading is vocabulary, and opportunities are informational text. When the Common Core standards came about years ago, we knew that informational text had to be a strong focus as much as literature and literary text. So depending on how the curriculum is written, we now see need for a little bit more informational work. They do at least 2 units of study on informational text where the students are doing research on topics, but that wide reading of different types of informational text is definitely something we continue to need to work on. In 4th grade, this is a grade level that we heavily targeted this year. We knew that our SBAC performance was a little bit lower in this grade level. We had strong performance of this cohort in 3rd grade, and we wanted to continue with that. We had 76 students, 62% were receiving some type of intervention. 9 special education students, so it's a lower special education student cohort. 2 students are English language learners, however, 36 students received some type of reading or math tier 2 or tier 3 intervention. So this year we had a maternity leave. We couldn't fill that maternity leave mid-year. Our reading specialist, who was targeting students with certain reading deficits, ended up substitute teaching in one of the reading classrooms. So while we kind of kept that class alive, she was not able to do interventions for part of the year. Still, in one particular group, one teacher's classroom, both of her classrooms, we exited students from reading interventions, and some of those, in that classroom, one teacher, 2 classrooms, we had the majority of kids in the high growth category for their NWEA performance in reading. So we would have liked to seen that in both classrooms, but that maternity leave did impact to some extent. Our math performance, 74% were scoring at the 41st percentile or higher. Strengths are numbers and operations, and opportunities are operations and algebraic thinking. The reading performance, 68%. Literary text is the strength in reading, and vocabulary is an opportunity.
What's the difference between literary text and informational text?
Literary is fiction. So novels, chapters, stories, it's a fictional story or a narrative nonfiction, like somebody's life story. So it follows the story sequence. Informational text is research information. You might read about dinosaurs or science topics or something along those lines where there's a cause and effect, real life phenomena, anything having to do with informational, not story sequence.
Hey Barb, when you talk about operations in math, you see how they're operations and algebraic thinking, numbers and operations, and they're separate, discrete?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. It's a lot of operations.
Yep, so numbers and operations has more to do with addition and subtraction, the basic calculations, and as in 4th grade we get into more multiplication. And operations are like the number sentences with abstract representation and algebraic symbolic representation.
Barb, can I just add on for that fourth grade group there. You know, I know historically, if you've been on this board, you've heard Barb and I talk a lot about the struggles that we've had with fourth grade. And I just want to acknowledge her team and the coaches for working so strategically in this grade, because the performance has really, really turned around in terms of they did not lag this year. They performed right alongside the other grade levels this year. So those strategies definitely helped them to come up this year.
In fifth grade, we have 75 students, 63%. Again, we had a high percentage receiving some type of intervention, 17. So this is a higher cohort of special education students. 3 English language learners, 27 received interventions in reading and math. The math performance, 61%. We're at the 41st percentile or higher. Strength is geometry, and opportunities, operations, and algebraic thinking. So there's a little bit of a pattern with 4th and 5th grade there, with operations and algebraic thinking being areas we need to look at. 58% scoring, 41st percentile or higher in reading. Strength is vocabulary, and opportunities are literary text. Math performance in grade 6 was strong, so we had 63 students testing, 57% receiving intervention, 9 special education, no English language learners, and 27 receiving intervention services. Again, we're fortunate to have 3 interventionists working at Pearson School in grades 4 through 6, so we are really trying to target before school, after school interventions, push-in support in the classroom alongside the teacher doing small group instruction. So we're fortunate to have those intervention services. The strength for math was real and complex number systems, opportunities, statistics, and probability. We know this. This is where we shift into illustrative math for the curriculum. So it's bridges, ends in 5th grade. We start with illustrative, which is 6, 7, 8 at Gilbert. They continue with illustrative. And the teachers will tell you, we do statistics and probability at the end of the year. This is definitely an area that we need to beef up and to support in math in 6th grade. The reading performance was 74%. Literary text was a strength, which surprised me because typically our pattern was 6th grade does a lot of research. They do a lot of social action projects, a lot of research, a lot of argument essays about issues in the world. And typically we see it flipped. We see a strength in informational in 6th grade and opportunities in literary, but this cohort likes to read fiction, and their opportunity is informational text.
How many of your students in 6th grade read for pleasure, do you think?
You will see the majority in those classrooms. They, the way the teachers' college is structured is that they choose the books they get to read, and it's a working book, right? So they have choice depending on the unit of study that they're focusing on. It might be a unit on fantasy, and so we have classroom libraries. We have an enormous school library. The kids pick out books of choice at their reading level, and they get to read through that. And on any given day during reading workshop, you can walk in and hear a pin drop. They are reading with, especially by the time they get into 5th and 6th grade. And typically when you say it's time to stop reading, they no. They love to read. If the structure is there, if they're in the right book, if it's matched to their reading level, and they're engaged socially. So we like to do book clubs, partner talks, so that they have time to have discourse around the book that they're reading. It's like going to see a movie with someone, right? So if they read the same book, they can meet and talk about that book and, have discussion and further their thinking about the themes and the topics that are engaged in the text.
Right.
They love to read for the most part, most students.
So Barbara, can I just ask you a question? So there's built-in reading available or in the curriculum daily?
Absolutely. It's called independent reading. And so a teacher would deliver a mini lesson. So in 6th grade, you might see a mini lesson on determining the theme of a fictional text. So sometimes in life, people struggle to fit in, right? And then they are reading social types of fictional stories. And so they are then taking notes and annotating as they read with sticky notes or in their notebooks, kind of tracking a thought pattern. So I think the theme of this story, as I start to get into this text, is about somebody trying to fit in, or somebody feeling like they're being bullied in school, and then they track characters' reactions, they track relationships, they track how a character is overcoming this, and how a character has resolved this problem in their life.
And then is there, like what Doug was referring to, just for pleasure? You were saying that they do book groups and stuff like that?
It's all
Or is
work.
that home?
I mean, they have, it's not built into the day, right, to read for pleasure.
Okay.
You want it to be both, right? You want them to be reading a story and enjoying it, but also doing the literary work behind that. When they're studying a research topic, they get to choose the topic. And so in 6th grade, they might be studying social action. For a long time, they were studying plastic bags and, working towards a debate. In 5th grade, they debate chocolate milk. And so they read texts about should chocolate milk be served in school, and they look at the pros and cons, they take a side, and then, they're reading and researching as they go, and you hope that they enjoy that topic and you want to engage them. And we have a variety of authors and books that are around that unit's theme, and hopefully they can engage that way.
Doug, when you were referring to how much reading do you think that they do, were you referring to just picking up a book and reading for pleasure, or were you referring
Yeah,
to
yeah.
within the curriculum? Yeah, that's
Both, really, but I would like to think the kids go home and say, I'd like to read a book,
Yeah.
instead of looking at your cell phone or whatever.
You have a percentage of students that are voracious readers, maybe I would say 15%, that they just can't stop reading. They would rather read than socialize. They read a book a day, or a book a week, and that's not the norm. And those kids are actually sometimes harder to work with because they don't want to stop and jot. They don't want to do the work around
Right.
writing out because it slows them down. They just want to read. But the majority of kids do enjoy it, and they work through the units as the teachers kind of support that topic.
I wanted to ask you another question. Do you think that the bump in the special ed in the 5th is it just they're more identifiable?
I think it's
Or-
just the population of kids, and some years there's a higher percentage, and some years there's a lower percentage, and it just has to do with the population.
And then my last question is, do you guys do a science fair?
We do not do a science
Not to
fair.
put anything more on, but, yeah, was just wondering.
You're doing
That
Kid
might-
Governor.
I know, but that might help with the nonfiction reading.
Yeah, there is a lot of more and more informational text brought into science, because if you look at the NGSS test, the IABs are all about reading an informational text, looking at graphs, and then responding on the test. So a lot of social studies and science has to do with informational reading.
So you know how you focused on 4th grade as a concern area, and it's shown to have some dividends. I don't know if we're gonna wait till later to talk about what to do with the little ones, the 1st graders. Like, where do you anticipate
We're
going?
talk in general.
Okay.
but As a team, we have a plan to address. We're just starting, actually, the other day, we sat down and started working around specifically what we're doing. But you'll see some of the strategies holistically that we're gonna see coming up in the rest of the
Okay,
presentation.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to speak to you quickly about Dibbles and Pelly. So the Dibbles assessment really focuses on the phonemic awareness and phonics associated with reading. The
course.
Sure. So that is sounds,
Pronunciation.
listening, so everything you're kind of listening to. So how segmenting sounds, so tapping out the sounds in a word, how many parts does a word have when you're saying a long word, those are just examples of what they're being assessed.
We're not looking at letters, we're looking at sounds.
Sounds.
Or hearing
Yeah.
sounds.
Which surprises me, you know, the NWEA, they did well in literature and informational text. It's just kind of like oxymoronic, you know, well, that's not the word, counterintuitive.
I think it kind of tells us though, and we were saying this about some other like running record data and other student-specific data. We were just talking about it with my assistant actually yesterday. So we're seeing that students are able to apply it sometimes, but in isolation, they're having a hard time. So it used to be the opposite.
Yeah.
When we used to do intervention, we used to just teach the scale in isolation and they used to master it and we used to be great. We switched where now, you know, our expectation is students are always in text no matter what, right? They always have a book in the hand and they're always reinforcing what they're being taught. And now we're actually seeing the flip side. So I think that's telling us, especially, you know, as we're working with teachers and working in intervention, that there needs to be a fine balance. Now we need to make sure that students are able to do it in isolation as well as applying it. So there's a fine balance between that. Is this me again? So I am going to go over the scores with you for running records. So that's our reading assessment in kindergarten, first and second grade. So you can see on the left-hand side we have spring of last year. This is set up the same way as the NWEA charts were set up. So you can see across the grade level and then cohorts going down. So we can see kindergarten went last spring from 51% to 49% this spring. We can see the cohort stayed the same, which is actually, it didn't go down. So that's actually a good thing in this particular grade level. So, you know, again, different students, but we're able to hold steady in that area. First grade did increase across the grade level, 48 to 51. And then we can see second grade last spring was 53%. The cohort did increase, and we also saw an increase across the grade level. So we're seeing an average increase of 1% from last spring to this spring, but we are seeing increases or staying the same. So no areas of drop in this particular area.
That's good.
Rosie, we have 104 kindergartners, so we have how many classes? Is that 4 classes? 5. And so typically in our school, because of the lower enrollments, you have 67 or 70 kids. The class size is usually more like 18, is that?
18.
All right, so that's really not a significant difference. Class size-wise. All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
So for grades 3 through 6, we'll briefly just discuss the running records. And what's interesting, what I like to see is we like to compare the percentages at grade level of the running records to the NWEA percentages. There should be a correlation, and it should link to the same correlation with the SBAC scores. So the feedback that I give to teachers is if we have the majority of kids are at 84%, you know, at grade level on a running record, and we have 70% or 65%, you know, at where we want them to be on NWEA, then we're being a little bit too easy. There's a little bit of subjectivity on running records. The teachers ask 4 questions after they read 1 or 2 page passage. And sometimes there can be some prompting and some, okay, I know what you're trying to say kind of thing when you're answering the question. So I also tell the teachers that we want to make sure the kids are putting the work in at that reading level that they're assessing them at. So if they can answer 4 questions, are they doing the work in the text at that level on a day-to-day basis? If not, let's not move them up. So 3rd grade, from 2nd grade to 3rd grade, from 53% to 49% at grade level, there was a dip. And if I know those 3rd grade teachers, they would say, these kids are not working to the extent where I'm comfortable moving them up to the next highest level. I want to see a little bit more work before I move them up to the next highest level. But there is a pattern of similarity between NWEA percentages and running records, which helps us, feel a little bit more confident in our analysis. Third grade went up 7% from 56 to, in fourth grade, 63% at grade level. Fourth grade, 59 to 64, an increase of 5%, and fifth to sixth grade, an increase way up. So, those students, by the time they get to sixth grade, they know the game. They're at very high level text. Sometimes the teachers give them time to sit down at their desk and write out the answers, and they know what they need to do to be successful at that text. They take their time, they read through, they look for details, they know how to move up levels by that time on that type of assessment. So we see a high percentage and a strong cohort growth there from fifth to sixth. Any questions?
Evening. I'll be short and sweet. It's hard to say this, like coming at the end of the school year, but we're looking ahead to next school year already. So Winchester Public Schools continues to have high expectations for student learning, and we are committed to increasing our SBAC and NWEA performance by at least 2% in all content areas by next spring. We have historically had a very low chronic absenteeism rate below the state average prior to COVID. Obviously, that threw us a couple curveballs with quarantines or double quarantines or triple sometimes that really impacted our rate. So we're committed to getting that decreased by at least 8% next school year. And we're going to come back to establishing a baseline of connectedness. We're going to try and measure that baseline, how staff and students are feeling connected. And we're going to be doing this through a survey, and that will serve as our whole school indicator.
Can you tell us a little bit about the survey? What kind of questions will be on it, too?
So, sorry, Cassandra kind of got that thrown in here.
I could talk all day, you know I could talk about this.
So, if you remember the presentation Cassandra did a couple weeks ago regarding DESA, a lot of the work that we did around that this year was around relationships and making sure that students had an adult that they could go to should they had an issue. We started that work this year, but we want to kind of continue that work into next year. And what I want to do is really kind of determine what's our baseline of kids and staff that actually have, like, would they say that they're connected to an adult in this district, if asked, what are the examples, what's the proof that we have that our kids do feel supported by adults? So that's kind of the work that I want to do as our whole school indicator next year around the DESA component and how we can weave that into making sure that our students have a staff member that they feel safe and connected to.
Those videos on Thursday night were pretty compelling.
Yeah.
So the 2% on content areas, I'm worried about that first grade group. Is that enough for them?
Not enough for them. They would times that by 10.
All right.
But on average, so I think where we've gotten to, is we're starting to see our plateau, now that we're a year out of COVID. We're at our point where I think you're gonna see ebbs and flows on a yearly basis depending upon the cohort. And what my expectation would be is that you're now gonna see more of a slower, steady increase incrementally over the course of time, rather than like these gigantic jumps that you were seeing in year 1, 2, and 3. And then this year, I would venture to see that you're gonna see those growth slim down a bit in the future.
Okay.
So, but you should see us maintain steady.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And then the last slide is, our professional development goals for next year. Just like the board, dictates Mel in regards to their vision for what the board would like to see the Winchester Public Schools. Mel then turnkeys us that down to our administrative team, and we determine what our professional development goals are for next year. So a couple things that we really want to focus on next year is going to be a vision of a student, looking at not just pre-K to 6, but looking at pre-K to 12, and having a collaborative approach and a process with the Gilbert School. So really nice to see some Gilbert School members here today. I know the work that Ms. Murphy and Mr. Shagru have been doing up there in regards to the inclusion work that we've been doing, the NEASC reaccreditation, curriculum writing that's happening up in Gilbert right now, all things that our kids are benefiting from, and we've been having to be able to be an active participant in. So I think that's been really nice. Also focusing on promoting positivity. COVID's been here. It's been here for 2 years, but We really need to create that positive outcome, make it where kids want to be at school, happy to be at school, teachers with smiling faces walking and greeting them every single day, really bringing back that positivity in our schools, because we are going to continue to make gains no matter where we are. And the last thing is positive student behavior and engagement. Again, that's looking at Ms. Murphy in the DESA data and the DECA data, identifying those kids that have that strong adult that they can go to, that trusting adult that they can go to, and really focusing on some of our cohorts that we're looking at that are struggling right now, that first grade group, and saying what can we do and implement in tier 1 through 3, general tier 1, then looking at tier 2 and tier 3 interventions to really promote increasing that student behavior and that student engagement to get them so they are ready to learn, because we've talked about that for a lot of years. Like, kids, when they're ready to learn, will learn. It's just getting up to that point. So,
Seamus, if I could just add on to
Please.
that last one. A couple weeks ago, we did a survey for the staff that said, what are some areas that you really need to focus on in professional development? And across the board, I mean, probably at a 75% level, we saw teachers really seeking out post-COVID, how do I handle behaviors in the classroom that might be exacerbated by social situations where kids don't necessarily have the coping skills that they might have had in the past. So our teachers are definitely seeking out strategies and support on how to redirect students in a way that's positive and causes them to be more engaged in the lesson. So that'll be some of the work that we're into next year. Thank you. And I want to acknowledge our team. I know this was an hour and 7 minutes break. This was not one of our quick presentations tonight. But certainly the work that you guys are doing is shining, showing that we're working as a team and that our staff is really marching in the same beat, because we're seeing performance across the grade levels doing very, very similar things. So I just want to acknowledge the team for all of their work. Thank you.
And I want to thank all of you. I think the presentation was exceedingly clear. The graphs were great. We had colors.
Nora.
Yes, yes.
But it was really very comprehensible for us, and I appreciate your making everything so clear-cut for us. Thank you. It was good news, too.
Good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we should have been talking public comment.
I
No.
don't feel like you need to stay the whole night. I'm sure you're not on the watch anymore.
Is there any member of the public who'd like to comment? If not, we'll move on to our consent agenda.
Yep, stayed twice.
3 times.
3 times. Any member of the public who'd like to comment? Going twice, 3rd time, anyone who wants to comment? If not, we will move on. Thank you. To our consent agenda, which has the minutes from our regular meeting of May 10th and our committee meetings of May 24th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'm going to make a motion.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. I would make just one piece of information on the Gilbert report, and I would invite Holly or Greg if they wanted to add to it, but just that there is a principal search going on right now. There's 3 candidates that have been interviewed so far. Greg or Holly, do you want to add anything to that at this point?
That's it right now? Yeah, I mean, the 3 candidates, we're working through the process. Yeah, thank you.
So the plan that had been made that led to Mr. Sharubrian hiring is not working for Gilbert?
Sorry?
I'm asking the chair. So originally, when they restructured, there was a whole committee as to how they were gonna do the school. They were gonna do a head and principal combined role. That's not working for
The
Gilbert now?
discussion that occurred at the TGS meeting was that Mr. Shagru spends an enormous amount of his time attending to administrative details, disciplinary matters, and he's not able to do the instructional duties that we would, it's just too much for one person to do.
So, what I'm saying, the model that they agreed
Yeah.
on isn't working, so they need to go to a different model.
I would agree with that, yeah. I think that a change was necessary, in my opinion.
So,
Yeah.
we're not adding an additional position, we're reshifting and keeping 4 administrators, we're reshifting responsibilities and titles.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that, Holly. All right, so we can move on to correspondence. We have 1 letter of resignation this evening.
Yes, we have Rachel Rubino. I'd like you to please accept this with regret. She's moving closer to where her future boyfriend will be. We have another.
Future boyfriend?
Well, sorry, fiance?
That's pretty optimistic.
Yeah, fiance. Listen here, it's been a day. Future, I think there's a song about that. Future husband, there we go. I'd also like you to please accept with regret our art teacher. She's going to be going to Region 1, and we have a letter of resignation from a para and a resignation from a social worker at the Gilbert School.
Do we have any prospects for replacing these?
Say that again?
Do we have prospects for replacing these people?
I don't know if Barb got good news or not. Left a message. We're in process. Greg and I were just talking about this the other day. The pool is shallow right now in terms of it's really hard to get applicants. 4 years ago when we would have a second grade, like an elementary teacher position open, we would easily get 80, 90 applicants for it. And we're lucky to get 5. And it's really, really a completely different ball game. We really have to be aggressive.
It's in every industry.
Yeah, it's really
So this is-
unlike I've seen it before.
This is post-COVID?
Yeah. Before COVID, we'd have hundreds of applications we'd be sorting through and boatloads of people that we could select from. Now it's few and far between.
I'm having the same trouble in finding staff. It's hard right now.
So.
Superintendent's report.
Yes. So we've been really busy acknowledging during the month of May and June. So under instruction, as you've seen tonight, we finished our SBAC administration for reading and math and our NGSS assessments in science. Our students have been participating in field experiences and class trips at all grade levels. All students participated in field days across the district. All grade levels held award ceremonies celebrating the achievements of students. 6th grade had their promotion event and transition meetings to TGS. The students in the TAG program shared their work during a TAG family showcase, and that's our talented and gifted programs. Our 5th grade students received the puberty talk, if you've ever had to have the puberty talk. We did that one. NWEA and local assessments were administered. We held interviews for several positions throughout the district. We've conducted end-of-the-year teacher evaluations, held special services meeting to prepare for the 22-23 school year, and that's primarily with Seamus and Cassandra's offices. Our 6th graders graduated from the DARE program in partnership with the Winchester Police Department. The PTO held the book fair, and all students got to select a book for the summer that was brought to us by the PTO. Under operations, I continue to participate in weekly meetings at Hinsdale. Right now, they're pretty much daily at this point as we're closing. They're waxing the classroom floors right now. They're that far along. It is amazing. We are preparing right now, and Rosie, myself, and Barb, and I think every other person in this district has been packing boxes, moving furniture. We are ready for our building moves on the 21st, next week on Tuesday. The town budget presentation had happened, and the vote also was held during this time period. I've participated in the Litchfield County meetings with superintendents. We attended the Gilbert academic presentation. We've held our Teacher of the Year and Para of the Year selections, and we have concluded with a data presentation this year. So going into attendance, right now we are at 560 students, and you know that we've kind of been fluctuating around that number all school year. If you go on to the next page, chronic absenteeism is atrocious.
What
I'm just
happened
gonna
in May? Yeah.
So May is when everybody came back from April break, and we had a boatload of kids and staff that had COVID. You know, it was unbelievable the number of people that we had out of work for sicknesses. So what that means in May is that most people in our district missed 2 or more days, because you go by chronically absent for the month is about 2 days of the month. So
Really probably devastated.
Yeah,
So-
it's high.
Can I just ask you, so if May you're attributing to COVID being 1 to 2 days, we didn't see those same numbers after Christmas or the holiday break, Christmas break in January?
Not like we did. May was actually, that end of April, beginning of May for us was worse than what it was after Christmas break.
That's weird.
Yeah. It felt like if you hadn't gotten COVID over the past 2 years, that's when you got it. I lived that, so. Looking at Gilbert's enrollment, right now, for Winchester, for the month of June, they're reporting 406 students. And you can see that grade breakdown on the next page. Sorry. Looking at our expected year-end appropriated budget amount, we are looking at having a balance of $4,601 in the black. So taking it right to the wire. Nothing like running it close. We are still showing that 2.1 in grant budgets right now because we have not taken out the money for the HVAC project yet. That hasn't been encumbered to that point. Our lunch program is right where it should be at year-end close. You know that we want to try to stay as close to zero as possible. It's not supposed to be a moneymaker for us. We're sitting at $3,134 as a balance. And then I have the Hinsdale report for you, which is very exciting. No safety concerns noted on the site at this point. Site work is ongoing, meaning outdoors. Landscaping, paving, prepping of grounds, slopings, playground, bottom installation, drainage is going on. Right now, they poured the foundation for the shed today. That savings of $10,000 that we did by going with this particular company, I'm working for every bit of that $10,000, let me tell you. Never again with that company. So it's been a work in progress and an ongoing piece of work every day. Landscaping is near completion, paving's underway, our furniture is set to be delivered on the 21st. Right now, classrooms are being punch listed, meaning they're going around in every single classroom and inspecting, like, is there a chip of paint here? Is, whatever isn't done or needs readdressed. The interior entranceways have been installed and windows are being added. Windows are to be delivered for the replacement windows in July, and then classrooms are being cleaned and the floor waxing is taking place. You can see the updated pictures that are included there. There's lots of movement at the project right now as we move towards closing out the project on time and under budget.
I love that skylight. Are you going to do another tour?
No more tours till the grand opening. So I'm making everyone wait.
Thank you, Melanie.
You're welcome.
Back to where we were. Yep, board action items. We have some new hires to be informed about.
Yes, so we have Angel Cologne, who was hired as a custodian replacing Ed Harris, who is retiring as of June 30th. We have Megan Hamelek, who is being hired as a library media service person. So she's going to be going to Hinsdale for this upcoming school year. She's also coming from out of state. So we have an out of state applicant that's moving in town. Jovalise Vega, who I could not be more proud of. I see Glenna raising the roof in the back there. So let me tell you a little story about Jovalise. So Jovalise has been in our school system since the beginning of the school year. She joined us as a interventionist in a building sub, and she has just absolutely, every day, she just does a fantastic job. She's always there. She's committed with the kids. She's just always got a smile on her face, and every time I walk into there, she's got those kids eating out of the palm of her hand. So Miss Barb knows that she comes in and she has a smile on her face every single morning, no matter what we ask or assign her to do, she does it. So this is one of those opportunities where we had to grow someone inside. So we have promoted her to the second grade teacher that we had a vacancy for next year. So I'm really pleased to say that.
So she went ahead and got her certification?
She was certified at the beginning of the school year, yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right, great.
those are our new hires.
Great, thank you. What's policy series?
So I have two policy opportunities for the board tonight, and I just wanted to put them in front of you as something to consider. So we got our CABE bill for the school year, and our CABE bill was, let me just flip to the page here, was $7,290. And this includes the trainings, this includes our policy services, the administrator option, and what have you. So I wanted to talk to you about, you know, did you want to continue, since this is over a $5,000 fee, I have to bring it to you guys for consideration with this. Do you want to continue with CABE as we currently have been? I also asked Shipman and Goodwin how much their policy services are, and she said the initial subscription fee is $3,500, and then it's annually renewed for a flat fee of $1,000, which would be invoiced at the end of each calendar year. Now, what that does not include is, you know, some of the trainings and all of that for CABE. So,
The CABE bill, does that include our membership dues, or is that just the policy portion?
no, the membership's dues are $6,540, and then the policy services are $350. The CABE Connections, which is where you can kind of go online and look at the stuff, is $350. Their express program is $400, and then the administrator option is $195. Currently, we subscribe to only the policy services for the $350 and the express program, which allows us access to trainings online.
Cheryl, you have any thoughts?
I mean, our dues for CABE are $6,500. What do we get out of that?
That's the membership fee.
Right,
And
then
they
we
do,
added on
they do
policy.
legislative, like,
Right.
advocacy for us. That's kind of the behind-the-scenes stuff that they do. You know, they work a lot with board chairs in doing presentations, so those types of activities that we would not be getting from Shipman and Goodwin, because that's not what they do.
They're lobbying.
They're lobbying, yes.
And how do we benefit? What would you say the value of the membership is to us?
I would say the value comes from the lobbying. I wish they would be a little bit more open to their agendas in terms of what they're lobbying for, but pretty much they align with what educational services are looking for. There's been a complaint, you know, that their membership dues from other, you know, local superintendents that I speak to, they're high. But there's really no other board level advocacy out there group other than this group.
And how are their board membership dues calculated? Is it based on the size of the board, or that's?
Based on the size of the district.
Okay. And, you know, we have opportunities to do trainings. How often are trainings being taken advantage of by members?
I know Kristen takes advantage of them a lot. I've attended multiple trainings that they've had.
How about Doug? It does say that here that they do board chair check-ins. Have you been checked in?
They do a lot of things online
All right.
that they used to do, you know, personally, but most of it's been virtual lately.
They do submit to us CABE letters,
Yeah, no,
newsletters,
they do.
and
I get those.
heads-up legislation. They give us that in the packet.
I mean, it sounds to me that the services that they provide are an asset to our district, and
Certainly.
not services that we would be getting from Shipman and Goodwin.
Correct.
Certainly, the policy updates that we benefit from, those packets you receive are just, I think, priceless, but
They're very useful. You know, I don't know what Shipman Goodwin's policies would look like. I'm sure they would be accurate and valuable as well. But I think we need more than just a policy service.
So you're suggesting we stay with the status quo?
I'm suggesting we stay with CABE.
I would agree.
I would too.
But I do think we should try to all take more advantage of them.
I think that's a good
To
point.
be worthy of the $7,200.
Yes.
I mean, we, certainly when we first got out of receivership, huge support, worth
Yeah.
every penny.
And we, I attended a couple things, we had a couple
Right.
in-person things that we went to and stuff. So I think it definitely would be advantageous for all of our members to participate in some things, try to commit to one or two, so we're really getting the bang for our buck.
I just wanted to
Was
put,
that gentleman who came in?
Yeah.
Nick Caruso.
Yeah, but
I
they
just
have
wanted to
other
put it out in
trainers.
front of the board for consideration.
Do you need a motion on it?
We-
Well, yeah, you do, because it's over 5,000. I make a motion to continue with CABE for 72, whatever the invoice is, 72.90.
And I will second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion? Okay, looks like it's clear. Thank you.
Unanimous.
And we've done our,
Next one is not CABE,
is that something, what am I seeing?
Grants?
it's Shipment and Goodman.
So,
Page
Oh,
56.
okay.
We don't need,
Oh, those are the policy.
I thought we had the grants.
Oh, the grants, yes, we have grants. That's special education grant,
okay,
right here.
yep.
So you have a grant submission form in front of you. It is for the special education stipend grant specifically for paraeducator professional development. It's in the amount of $5,000. We are planning to use these funds to purchase professional development training in CT SEDS, which is the new online special education program for IEPs, and purchasing the master teacher training software package to enhance PD for paraprofessionals. You may know that legislatively, paraprofessionals are required to have professional development training starting July 1st. We've already been doing that for them, but this will further enhance that. So I'd ask the board to please accept us applying for this grant.
is this a competitive grant?
It is,
Yeah.
it is competitive, Nora. The state puts out these grants and then districts, we have to apply for them. They're usually first come, first serve, and whoever is awarded the grant is usually whoever they feel has met the criteria that they're looking for. So not every district is awarded the grant,
That's great.
but not every district applies for it either.
Okay, okay.
So apply for everything.
Yeah.
So we would need a motion to approve those two grant applications for special education?
Yes.
I would make a motion.
Well, you gotta do them separately because they're two separate grant applications.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Motion for the $5,000 paraprofessional.
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Unanimous.
And the second one?
So the second one is, again, a special education grant stipend. This one is for special education activities. Nancy and Seamus are putting forth an amount of $10,000, and this one here is to improve outcomes for students with disabilities from age 3 to 21. Specifically, what we're planning on using the funds for, our funds will be used for professional development for OT, speech and language, social workers, and psychologists, outside contractors to conduct evaluations. He listed a few here, which are psychological achievement, OT, PT, speech and behavioral as needed, create social, emotional, sensory pathways in the hallway. Seamus, I'm gonna ask you to explain what that means to the board, and then instructional and functional learning materials, please.
Sure, so we are always trying to just improve all of our social emotional kind of activities for our students. So sensory pathways are just kind of what they talk about, sensory pathways in the hallways where they're visuals that students can walk on, they can see, they can be part of. Instead of having to go to a separate room or going to it in their classrooms, just another way to enhance, just like our supports for our students in the hallways. They might be little, positive stickers on the ground, they might be, they might be things like murals on the walls. It could be a variety of different things that we work with. So, Ms. Murphy, I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just opportunities for our students to get that sensory input that they need ahead of time so that they can stay in class and be more available for learning and alerted and focused. There's just been a lot of evidence around that. We're trying to get ahead of maybe a student trying to run out of the classroom because they want to avoid something and not having the coping skills or the language to be able to ask for a break.
And then,
Yeah, along the way, you may be doing you may jump hopscotch and then do 10 push-ups and then take a big star breath and then come back and do it again and then go back to class.
So they would just-
Instructional, functional learning materials are things like, we have a higher number of students at the lower grade levels at HIT that students with physical needs, cognitive disabilities, things like that. So really trying to get some adaptive equipment, some functional seating for students, really trying to get some different things that we haven't had that type of population for a couple of years, but we have an influx of students with that level of need that we want to make sure that we're building our capacity to service those students as they move from Hinsdale to Pearson to Gilbert, or whatever it looks like, and try to be proactive about getting materials that are going to be consumable, not just for 1 year, but for many years to come, not just using it for a year and then it gets put in a closet. So we're really thinking about what next steps are, so we have the sustainability piece that goes along with it.
Thank you, Shanice. So we would need a motion to approve that grant application.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Unanimous.
It's unanimous. Just as an aside, while we're talking about grants, I was recently made aware that the Northwest Community Bank, as of January, has now created their own foundation, and for making grants, and one of the categories for which they make grants is education.
Love it.
So you might want to get your grant person on that.
That was
Really
Northwest
funny
Community
tonight.
Bank?
Get that grant person right on that.
I think they had the first grant round started in January. They had 61 applicants, but most of them weren't qualified because they weren't appropriate. But there's interest and there's money, so it's good. So Nora, the floor is yours.
Oh, no.
No.
Nope.
Where-
We're turning
what?
Bachelor back over to the town.
Oh, God, that's not the same one. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, Nora, you have
It's
to wait.
okay, it's okay. What page is that? Bachelor?
The language is on page 2.
Oh, right, okay.
Sorry, I missed that. So, Hinsdale is really going to happen, right? Because we're not going to get the school back if we don't have Hinsdale.
You make this motion, it's really gotta happen.
That's a good thing.
Okay, would anybody like to read that motion and put it in posterity? Because we're giving this building back to the town.
All right, I'll read it.
What page is that on?
Page 2.
Should it say, we move?
Well, you're
Doesn't
making the
matter.
motion.
Okay. Y'all there? Tell me when you're there. Okay. I move that effective June 30th, 2022, the Winchester Board of Education relinquish control of the town of Winchester-owned property located at 201 Pratt Street and known as Bachelor School, including the lands, grounds, buildings, facilities, structures, and improvements thereon to the town of Winchester. By such action, control of such property shall revert back to the town of Winchester, and the Winchester Board of Education shall no longer be responsible for the care, maintenance, and operation of such property.
Did you ask Rosie? Rosie, are you ready to give it back?
I'm not sure they want it.
That's the motion.
Second the motion.
A big drum roll here.
Yeah.
This is what, how many years in the making? Right? 4 years in the making.
I think it's positive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Nice
some
to
of
have
our
all the
colleagues are not
schools
here.
close
Yeah,
together,
definitely.
right?
So we have a motion. Is there a second to that?
Cheryl.
Second.
Cheryl, okay. Any regrets? Okay, all in favor? It is done. June 30th. It's
Just
no
hope it
longer
doesn't
our-
cost us a few $1,000s between now and June 30th.
Hey, yo, you just jinxed it. Okay.
Laura,
All right, so I make a motion in order to ensure the inclusion of the voice and concerns of the Winchester Public Schools in the State Department of Education study pursuant to Section 263 of Bill Number 5506, LCO Number 6176, February session of 2022. I make a motion to authorize and direct Winchester Superintendent Melanie Brady Shanley and 2 members of the Winchester Board of Education to work with the State Department of Education on behalf of the Winchester Public Schools and providing the history and any necessary documentation needed to present and address the concerns of the current and past Winchester Boards of Education to the State Department of Education, State Board of Education, as the state conducts its study and consultation with the Gilbert School of the funding process for the Gilbert School in accordance with Section 1034 of the General Statutes. In reference to Section 263, which was effective or will be effective July 1, 2022, The Department of Education shall conduct a study of the funding process for the Gilbert School, approved pursuant to Section 1034 of the General Statutes. The department may consult with the Gilbert School while conducting such study. No later than January 1, 2023, the department shall submit a report of the results of such study and any recommendations relating to the funding process for the Gilbert School to the Joint Standing Committee of the General Assembly, having cognizance of matters relating to education, in accordance with the provisions of Section 11-4A of the General Statutes.
Second.
Okay, now, Nora, we discussed this earlier. Did you want to modify your motion or not? Remember, we just,
Yeah, remind me.
okay. Melanie has received correspondence from Jay Case, who had been in touch with the Commissioner of Education. And Melanie, I refresh my memory, but basically the Commissioner of Education said that there was no,
That she has not acted on any information related to the study. The language in the current legislation states that the commissioner will consult with the Gilbert School.
so.
And it's really the commissioner that would be directing who would be engaged in the study.
So what Melanie had suggested to Nora, given that context, that if Nora would like to make a greater impression with the State Board of Education, it might behoove her or Cheryl or anyone else to approach the State Board of Education and speak during public comment on the subject.
Because as the legislation is written right now, we do not have any authorization to insert ourselves into the process.
That's right. I would like to add to this motion, an authorization should this opportunity exist, to authorize individuals on the board to present. I'd rather not see a delay. If the State Department comes in, I mean, the intent of this is to make sure that, because the legislation as it's referenced down here speaks of only Gilbert being part of the report. I would like the state to recognize that there's other stakeholders in this matter, of which being the Board of Ed for Winchester, as well as the selectmen of the town. But so I'd like to add to this, you know, should we be consulted, that we be authorized to speak on the board's behalf. This is just ensuring direction that we'd like to see Melanie work on our behalf, identifying 2 additional people that would speak on our behalf. But I would also like to add then, as a trigger, if you will, upon request, we fully authorize persons to speak.
Who would be making that request?
I would think if the state comes to us.
So I would think that you might want to rethink that, because you would have to go to the State Board of Education during their meeting and during their public comment, make that request that we be included, or the Winchester Board be included in comment or informational study. So they're not going to come to us. We'll wait a long time for the State Board of Ed to come to us and say, we want you to come here. And that's not the way the legislation's written.
Right.
The commissioner's indicated she doesn't see a need to even get us involved. So I think you need to be more proactive. And to speak to Melanie's point, we are not, as the legislation is drafted, authorized in any way to participate in this. So what you need to do is to get them to rethink that somehow. So I'm not sure how you want to do that, but I know you think time is of the essence, Nora.
Right.
It's really not, because these people are not going to even talk about it for
But-
the next 6 months.
But they have only a year. They have to
Okay.
deliver something in a year.
I
I'd rather,
agree.
They don't even have a year. They have 6 months.
All right, well,
right. So I would rather that Melanie get direction from us, clear direction, and I would rather that,
it's more authorization than direction. You can't direct Melanie to do something that nobody's asking her to do.
well, at least from our board, we can motion that we,
You can authorize her. You
Right.
can- we-
Should.
So as a friendly amendment, we should remove the words "and direct."
I
So
agree.
it should be, the motion to be to authorize Winchester Superintendent Melanie Brennan Shannon and 2 members of the Winchester Board to represent the Winchester Board in regards to the study of the funding process for the Guilford School.
And should they so choose to speak at the public comment section of a State Board of Education meeting to present information to them?
Well,
That's it,
I
yeah.
think it's kind of inclusive, but.
You
that-
think, yeah.
Well, I think
that
that's the
additional
operative
language.
issue. I think what Melanie is saying is that's the only way you're gonna get their attention.
It could be, or they could just give Melanie a call. And then at that point, it's like, okay, do we assemble a board meeting before Melanie actually answers that call? I'd rather not delay.
Can we make a friendly amendment to strike the word "to"? Can we just say "and members of the Winchester Board of Education"?
You mean the number 2?
And number 2, correct?
Yeah, so
and
we're
you
not
want all.
restricting it. And members of, just and members. So if there's more
Sure,
than 2
more
members that
inclusive.
want to go up and do public comment or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. We can get rid of that. So I make a motion to authorize Winchester Public Schools, Superintendent Melanie Brady Sander, and members of the Winchester Board of Education to represent the Winchester Public Schools
In providing any information or documentation needed to present and address the concerns of the current and past Winchester Boards of Education to the State Board of Education during public hearing or any other opportunity that presents itself in regards to the study.
Yeah, and
Nora?
Yes.
What I'd like you to do is once that language is finalized, could you please email that to Barb so that she can put that accurately in the meeting minutes, please?
to any opportunity
Thank
that
you.
presents itself regarding the study.
the language is clear, the way you've written it, that you're providing history and documentation. I'd like to emphasize that because this should not be construed as an opportunity to present opinion. Because for you to present an opinion, you would have to have a unanimous or a majority
Right.
voice from this board. So if they want history, if they want documents, that's fine. But once you veer into the realm of saying what you think is right or what isn't right, then I think you're on thin ice. So documentation and history is fine with me, but that's as far as I would go. So this is a very complicated motion. Do you have it simplified?
I think I might, I make a motion to authorize Winchester Superintendent Melanie Brandy Sander and members of the Winchester Board of Education to
Present.
represent the Winchester Board of Education? Yeah, Winchester
Public schools.
Public Schools. Public Schools, Winchester
No, it's
Public
Winchester
Schools?
Board of Ed.
Okay, Winchester Board of Ed, that's right, because that's who we work for. Winchester Board of, represent the Winchester Board of Education to, wait a minute, let me back up, Winchester Board of Education, to represent the Winchester Board of Education.
Why don't you just
To
take
work-
out to represent, but say to provide history and necessary documentation?
Wait a minute, I make a motion to authorize Winchester Superintendent and members of the Winchester Board of Education to represent the Winchester Board of Education in providing, in providing,
To provide.
to provide the necessary, to provide the history and any necessary documentation needed to present and address the concerns of the current and past Winchester Boards of Education to the State Board of Education
During public comment or any other opportunity presented.
during public comment and/or
Any other opportunity
or
presented.
any other opportunity that presents itself regarding the study.
So,
Can I
note of
type this?
clarification, Nora, this legislation is a result of activity from our Board of Selectmen? Is that correct?
Board of Selectmen and this board, we jointly approved.
Okay, but the Board of Selectmen were the one who brought it forth to the legislators, is that true?
Right, but we approved it, we worked together and approved it, but they had the authority to actually bring it to
Okay.
legislator, and then the language got changed by the
Okay.
representative.
And I realize realize it's not within our purview, but is the Board of Selectmen intending to, in any way, try to participate in the study? Have they talked to you about that?
No, I would imagine they would, because it's a financial issue, so it involves the town, right?
I don't know where
I
that
mean-
stands.
I don't know if there's any action on the Board of Selectmen side of it.
Yep.
I haven't, but I'd like to be proactive since the clock is running. And then hopefully this will be a message to the Board of Selectmen.
Does everybody understand the motion? Renee? Okay. Tori, do you understand the motion as Nora read it? Okay, so
Okay,
we
read
have
it
a
one more
motion
time.
and Cheryl, your second stance.
Yep.
Is there any discussion or questions on that? Okay. All in favor of that motion?
Unanimous.
So, again, I think that if you want this to get to the state board's attention, you're probably gonna have to be proactive.
Definitely.
Because as it stands now.
Pretty good
the
at
commis-
cattle prodding.
The Commissioner of Education doesn't seem to think there's a need for anything from us.
Have you had a conversation with her?
I'm just inferring from what Jay and the correspondence from Jay and the Commissioner on email. So, okay. And that leaves us with policies.
So we review for first read. Fortunately, they're not accurate, that have been, all of them are accurate. First one, gifted and talented, there still needs to be some edit. If you look at the first paragraph, there's language that isn't supposed to be, I don't know how things got switched out. But the districts are required to identify provision of services at discretion. That shouldn't be part of the policy. That's just kind of informational, so that should be taken out. And also, further down on that page, there's in bold, italics, in parentheses, optional language that,
I can take those out, Cheryl.
yeah, but it's a first read, it's a mandatory policy. We already have a program, but we're supposed to have this in place sooner rather than later. So if I have a motion to move it to second read?
Will it be modified for second read?
Yes. We'll have
I've
the
made
final
the
format
notes.
for second read. Anyone have a motion? Sandra's motion, anyone second?
Second?
All in favor? Not unanimous. Next one is the attendance, policy 5112A. And this is for first read. This is a mandatory policy as well. Based on modifications from recent legislation. Does anyone have any questions?
Was this the one that we had decided to move to first read?
I believe it looks like it is. Unless you, does that look different to you now?
Just looking here, there's two policy that's, so it's the policy on page 60 that was moved
Right.
forward, not the policy on, for some reason, that second one on page 63 got added in there. So strike page 63, 64, 65,
That was
and
the other-
leave 66. The forms, 67. And that's it. So strike 63, 64, 65, keep 67, 66, and 67. And I have those changes noted.
Thank you. And this is good, just going to second read. Do I have a motion? Sandra, the second? And this is exciting issues here. We're not gonna go forward and go down.
I'm being
Okay, all in
accommodated.
favor? Unanimous?
I'm trying to be
On
accommodating
60,
tonight,
on
Beth.
page 68, looks like, kind of hard. We have policy 9350, which involves public hearings. And this is first read. This is, we discussed this at the policy committee. Are there any questions? Everyone was there at this one? Do I have a motion? Sandra. Do I have a second? Tori. All right, all in favor? Unanimous?
No changes, Cheryl?
No. This is the policy that we, yeah. Okay, and then we have policy 4118.114, and this is not the correct policy that should be presented.
So tell me more about that.
We had if you recall, we had done one where it has employees instead of specifying gender.
Yeah.
I emailed that to you. This is the original form policy, not the one that I modified after our March meeting.
Okay,
That was
I
passed
apologize.
into-
Did you forward that to Darlene?
I forwarded, we had it at our policy meeting, the correct policy.
Yep,
That's what was passed.
yep.
To come up here, and then I emailed it today when I saw that to you and Darlene.
Okay.
When I saw it wasn't, and then I emailed it to the rest of the board.
Would you
when I
like
got
me to
here.
pull it up on the screen as opposed to,
Yeah, that's fine with me.
I can pull it up for the board?
It's on the next page.
No, not the modified one.
Yes, it is.
Is
Right
it?
here. I'm looking right at it.
What page?
They got two of them?
71.
No, that's page C. No, that's not it.
Because we're specifying mothers, her.
I'm gonna
We did take-
disconnect because I've got to go to my email real quick.
Yeah, no, it's not on here at all. Yeah.
Good graphics.
Okay, so this is the policy,
Is that big enough for everyone to see?
that's the act.
Yep, that's the first page that you sent me.
Okay.
So here it is.
No, that's not,
That's what you sent me.
all right, then I don't know what happened there.
See, we were meant to keep the original policy.
No, we weren't, 'cause that's not what we passed in policy.
Yeah, we had made some changes. Okay,
Want to table it till next meeting?
yeah, we'll do that.
Table.
Let me check this other one from Cheryl.
No, that's the same, you sent, I just forwarded the same, I'm trying to get some of this. No, that's not the right one. I'm gonna pull it up.
You forwarded it to me last board meeting?
It was in the policy packet for the last policy meeting.
Cheryl, I move we table policy 4118.114 to be discussed at the next meeting.
Second.
Then we get some clarity on it.
We're just trying to move it to second read. We're supposed to have this policy in effect. It's past due date. We passed it through the policy committee, but whatever. I will not agree to that, but I don't have to agree to it because the majority will rule. But.
So wait, what is in our packet is
The
incorrect?
original form policy.
Yeah,
not
so
the
it's
policy
not
that
the
we
updated.
passed.
It is not the updated.
Yes.
All right.
We have a motion
This-
on the floor, Mr.
There's a
Chairman.
motion on the floor, so don't bother.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just so I'm understanding. So pages 69, 70, 71, and 72 in our own packets is
The original
the
policy.
original, not
Not the
the
one that we got.
edited.
Right.
Okay, all right, yeah, so I'm in agreement in tabling it because we don't have the right policy in our packet.
So that'll get tabled to August of 22.
All in favor of that?
August 2022.
All in
And that comes back as a first read.
You just don't have the
Sorry,
right.
Cheryl, but I just wanted to,
So what's the number, what's the count on that one? Was that a 4 to 2?
Should not have been happened.
Was that a 4 to 2 vote on that?
Correct.
1, 2, 3, 4 in favor of tabling, 2 opposed.
Should have waited if we found it somewhere.
I have it, but.
I'd like to see,
I wanna see it
But
physically.
It hasn't been part of the packet. I'm abstaining, so that's
All
my
right.
position.
What was the vote again for Barb?
4,
Or 1-1.
are you
Yeah,
voting?
Thank you.
No, 4-0-2.
402, thank you.
So it is tabled till August.
Cheryl, can you forward me that
Yeah,
policy when you get it?
Yeah, I have it, and it's in the policy packet from last month's meeting, and I will happily send it again to
Thank you.
everyone.
Because I
Because I
can't seem to
don't-
find it.
Right, this has got to get clarified between the community, because it's not the only policy that got messed up today. So that's, I don't know what happened. Okay, so the next one we have
is
is
Second read.
5113.
513. This is
Attendance.
Attendance, this is a second read. It's a
Right.
mandatory policy. I'm trying, I hope this is the right one.
It is.
Okay. So, this is required, it sets forth, different types of remote counts, talks about remote. We discussed this at length in policy meeting. Any discussion, questions?
Weren't we gonna just keep it K through 6? I see K through 12.
We have to keep it
We
K
have to
through 12
because we have
because we have
special
special
ed.
education
okay.
students.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve that.
Any seconds?
A second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
And then we have one more policy for second read for approval, and that's 6171.2, and that's the preschool special education policy. And Seamus is correct, this was a mandated policy, and nothing we can do about it. Anyone have any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve it.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
And that's it for me.
Hey, Cheryl?
Yes.
I happened to be looking at our bylaws, because when Dick resigned, I wanted to make sure that we were in compliance with them. They actually don't mention resignations and filling vacancies, but I noticed the date is 2013,
That's too old.
so maybe we should put that on our to-do list, to take a look at the bylaws and see if we want to update them.
Sounds like a good thing. Maybe we should discuss that at our retreat, which is another issue we still need to deal with, right?
Yeah,
Put
we
that on the agenda.
haven't come up with a
There's
date
gotta
for
be
that.
a newer.
And that's next on the agenda, actually, getting close.
Doug,
Oh, no, one more.
Aren't the bylaws, up on our website that might be more recent?
I can't remember that we've ever adjusted, changed them. Can you? If you haven't done it and I haven't done it, it hasn't been done.
I'm just curious about what is up there on the website.
I don't
I'll
think-
have to check.
Yeah, I would have to guess it's the same one.
It's in there, the 9,000 series in the Board of Ed policies,
Okay. So, next issue?
Okay.
the bylaws of the board are under
Okay,
the 9,000 series.
all right, let's check it, see. Melanie would like to have her contract extended for another year, so she'd have a third year onto her contract. She is requesting a 2.5% increase for the year 2024, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve contract extension for Melanie Brady Shanley, superintendent of June 30th, 2025, with a 2.5 increase for the year 24, 2025.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Any questions, discussions? We're a lively group tonight. I thought there'd be a lot more discussion than that, but that's okay. All in favor?
Just gonna keep my head down.
Unanimous.
It's unanimous, and thank you very much.
And we have
Thank
the
you, guys.
retreat. We gotta pick
Thank you.
dates.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, so when would you like to have this? I put out a doodle poll, which was not very successful.
No, it's not.
I could not respond to that. I clicked on it and I was.
Okay, just tell me when you guys wanna have it and we'll make it happen.
We should ask Doug.
What-
Doug is
August,
hosting
no?
it.
We usually do it in July.
We do.
So, somebody said July is no good, they'd rather do August. I wanted everybody to know right up front, my house is not air conditioned. So if we do it in August and it's 100 degrees,
Do you have
Good luck.
fans?
He has got breezes.
You had said that you were available after the 22nd,
All right, so
correct?
I am.
So how about that last week of July? Can we do the last week of July?
I can do,
The week of the 25th?
that week I can do the 28th or the 29th.
I cannot do the 28th.
I can do the 29th.
I can do the 25th as well. So the 25th, the 28th, the 29th I can do.
I could do the 25th.
25th?
Can I just ask, how long is the retreat, the times of the retreat? Because I have other things I've got on my schedule, but I just.
We usually go about 9 to 2:30.
Okay, that.
Is there any way we could do
So
the
I'm
week
free any day that
before
week then.
with lunch?
Or no, wait. No, I can't do it on the 25th. I have to do Connecticut SEDS expert training on that
Sunday,
day.
could you do the 29th?
Friday,
I don't want to commit to that because that's my son's birthday and we're thinking of
Oh.
going to California.
What about the first week in August?
I can only do 1, 2, or 3.
I can do the 3rd. The 1st or the 3rd.
I could do any of those days.
We don't have other members here, Jeanette
Oh,
or
right.
Kristen.
But we can,
I
but
think you need to
well,
do
why
your
don't-
doodle poll
does it seem,
again.
well, we can
So
do-
do
okay,
you want me to
we'll
put
do
out the
doodle.
first, second, and third
I
of
say-
August?
I'd say
Yes.
put, I was,
What are
yes,
those
the
days?
dates that we.
Monday, Tuesday,
Monday,
Wednesday.
Tuesday,
I
Monday
can't-
works best for me, so I can have a 3-day weekend.
I can't do
So I'm
the
taking a
2nd.
day off from work anyway to do it. I'd rather not
So,
break
or,
up my week.
or if we did it
It's complicated.
Why
Can
don't
we
we
do a
do
doodle poll just in
two-
case other
two
people
different-
have
Sure.
the first week of
conflicts?
August or
do
like
a
the
couple.
third week of July?
I think if we pick, but we don't have any date, the 3rd week of July did not work, because
Yeah.
she's away on vacation. I think we've got, 5 members here, if we can find 3 or 4 dates that 5 members here can go to,
Right.
and then put those dates in the doodle poll,
Yeah.
that makes the most sense, because at least we know we're gonna be, we're all able to go to that, and it's just
Okay.
the other members.
So we have August 1st, 2nd,
I
or
can't do the
3rd.
2nd.
So August 1st or 3rd. Do you want to?
How about August 5th as
I was
well?
just gonna say, yeah.
Can't do the 5th.
No,
Okay,
I
cool.
Oh, I was gonna say, how about, since Monday and Wednesdays, how about August 1st or 3rd or 8th or 10th? And give everybody, those are 2 weeks together. Monday's Wednesday, Monday, Wednesday, and then we can take a,
If you get
How's
any
it-
closer to the 15th, I'm gonna make you guys come unpack boxes at Hinsdale for a retreat.
Right.
That sounds good to me, those dates, the 1st, 3rd, 8th, or 10th.
I would
First,
just-
3rd, 8, 10.
I would suggest an 11th if people are available, just because a Thursday may be more, I'm fine with all those days, but we don't know if Mondays and if we just restrict to Mondays and Wednesdays and
Right.
everyone has a problem with Mondays and Wednesdays, just want to kind of give a third option of days.
Add a Friday. Can we add a Friday then?
all right,
looking
so,
for your
wait, wait,
3-day weekend.
first,
Thursday.
1st, 3rd, 5th, or 8th? How's that?
First, 3rd, 5th, or
I
8th?
can't
Fifth
do the
is out.
5th.
Oh, okay, she can't do the 5th.
First, 3rd, 8th,
10th, and 11th. How's
10th,
that?
and 11th.
All right, that's what I have going once, going twice, sold.
So it's 1, 3, 8, 10, or 11.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to, second motion.
All in favor?
Wait,
Public
wait,
com- wait,
public
wait,
comment.
wait, we did not do public comment at the end.
No? No public comment? No public comment? Thank you.
All right, meeting adjourned at 9:03. Meeting adjourned at 9:03.
Everybody say yes.
Everyone,